Okay, so I want to cover this first. Greetings, brothers and sisters. I already started this video that you're watching. I've made a whole video, but I'm going to add this to it here. Aliens at a Miami mall. Police say no. Police say LOL, laughing out loud. Despite memes and a flurry of speculation online, the Miami Police Department ruled out aliens as a possibility. Now, what's interesting about this? It's being covered by mainstream news. Here's the Daily Mail that's sort of a rag showing you the video. And so what they're saying is there's a 10 or 12 foot alien floating above the people here. And I really, you can barely see it. But there are people that said they saw it. And there's all these videos of, there's like 100 police cars there responding to a mall shooting, apparently. But people are saying that that's not why they're there. And it's kind of odd that you have this almost like Eye of Horus here with a light here, right? This looks like an eye, like the Eye of Horus. But they cover it here. Rumors of a 10-foot alien at Miami Mall circulate online. Here's what actually happened. There's no close-up videos, which is something interesting, which would kind of be more important. And this is CBS News. Rumors of a shadow aliens at Bayside Marketplace go viral after the large fight among teens creates chaos. Here's the helicopter footage here. And you see that there's just all these cop cars. And I'm not sure where the alien is. And I'll give my opinion about whether I think it's real or not, or could be real. But look at the line of cop cars. I mean, there's hundreds of cop cars there. Like, there's a lot of more cops than you need. Like, you need a couple of tactical units. Those guys aren't going in, right? Like, we know that the cops don't go in when there's something like this. And so they're just blocking the road, and they need to get a tactical unit in there. I mean, there's cop cars. There's like hundreds of cop cars there. Like, it seems like every cop in the city's over there. And, for what purpose? So we know this is the thing that looks like an eye over here. That's where the alien is. I don't know if we're going to get closer there. This might be the shot here. But they had some aerial footage, and they're claiming there was an alien there somewhere. I don't see it. Oh, maybe this is it here. Yeah, I don't see it. But there isn't anybody on the ground there with a video camera, with a phone, capturing what's going on and showing you like a clear video of the alien. So this is a hoax to me, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I like I said, I already made a video, and there was this egregious, the worst take I've ever seen on mainstream media. Morning Joe had this woman who's a reality TV star, some one of those sort of like Desperate Housewives kind of moms, and also a fashion industry mogul and, modeling, whatever. And she goes to Israel and hangs out with the IDF and talks about it. It's just so egregious. Like, I don't even need it's an epic take. And 2024 I covered, yesterday here, and I've been covering a little bit. And I'm concerned it's going to be a lot worse than we thought, right? Of course, amateur hour is like part of this thing, and this thing's amateur hour, and, all of it. Like, it's just complete amateur hour. But like I said, I decided to add this thing about the alien because it kind of fits in with this whole thing. But, this thing looks like a hoax because what's the alien's motivation for showing up in a shopping mall area in Miami, right? Like, why is the alien there, right? Why is the alien just hanging out, and why are there no close-up videos of it? Like, somebody seeing it there, 10-foot alien, why is there's not one person pulled out their cell phone? Even one of the cops who realized they could make bank. I mean, there's so many people there, you can see them. Why didn't one of them pull out their cell phone and get some footage? Because, that's a $1 million video, right? Or, whatever. And so, there's that. And we take videos of everything. But the real story is the mainstream media is covering it. Because there are things like this that happen all the time, and the mainstream media just chooses to completely ignore it. And there's no real footage of it, just a a very blurry helicopter shot where I can't even see the alien, so I don't even know what people are talking about. They're seeing there. And maybe some people are reporting seeing it in Miami. But the internet being the way it is, when people learn to lie, you ever see that Ricky Gervais movie, Invention of Lying, where people don't have the ability to lie, and then he gets this ability, and then he just, changes his life and fortune by being able to lie, and no one else can. But once people start to lie, then you'll never get the truth about any of this stuff, right? Not through science, maybe through spirituality and connection to God and connecting directly to the source, depending on how far you go. You can get deeper levels of truth. But, you never can believe people. And even if people are trying to be honest, that we're all warped and subjective in our viewpoint. And so we might be honestly reporting what we saw, but the way we see things is through a distorted lens. And so people believe in aliens or don't, believe in these things. I believe in them. I believe there's enough evidence, at least the evidence that's out there, if it's real, and I believe it is, that aliens, extraterrestrials have been around for a long time. It's part of my belief system. It's part of the Sajmark philosophy. And, there's these space people and sky people are talked about in Aboriginal cultures, and all these cave art and other types of art and the pyramids and all these things, I believe, are connected to all that. And then at some point the aliens disappeared or withdrew. That's what I believe happened. But, again, it's not factual. I can't prove it to you factually. But I think, this is my assessment of what's happened. And, why would one just show up in the middle of Miami and, with not any way of, it just seems odd. But the fact that the mainstream media is covering it in 2024 is already off to a weird start. That now we've had a report of an alien. And what if we get some more reports about this thing? There's this thing called Project Bluebeam, where they've had this technology for a while. And of course, they have the ability to do holographs and CGI, and they're going to fake an alien invasion, whatever. But the big story here is mainstream media said this is newsworthy. So what's newsworthy about it? You don't have really a video that you can debunk. And what, a rumor? They're saying, it's like a Bigfoot story, where there's a grainy video, and this is like saying Bigfoot walked down Miami Boulevard. It could be a guy in a Chewbacca suit. But, it's, why would they deem this as newsworthy? And there's lots of mainstream, just a list of mainstream networks that decided to, cover this like it was newsworthy. And maybe they're doing it for clicks. I don't know whatever. But, and we'll see how this plays out. If this is an ongoing story, then we'll see. Anyways, here's the original video I made for today. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So yesterday when I went to eat breakfast, every morning I go to eat breakfast, I eat the same thing. A grain called kasha or buckwheat with some fried eggs. Used to be millet, but I found I like the kasha better. And it takes me I eat fast, so it takes me maybe 2 to 3 minutes to eat. And I turn on the TV and I either watch some sports ESPN kind of thing or the news. It used to always be the news, but now I just, I have so much content anyway that I don't need to watch the news because I always find something on the news. If I watch it, I can find something. But since YouTube changed their YouTube TV, I think it's Apple Computer, not YouTube TV, but Apple Computer now blocks the ScreenFlow app from capturing something on YouTube TV, which kind of sucks because it was kind of the purpose of me having in the first place. I could watch some news item. Then I would record them on YouTube TV. I would record the YouTube TV, and then I record it with the ScreenFlow app. Again, this is not the point. But I turned on MSNBC yesterday. And, I can eat breakfast anywhere between 7:30 and 10 o'clock. It's just, I usually do a video. I do a voiceover. I start the video process before I eat breakfast. But anyways, so it's, it's a hit or miss thing. And this was a big hit. So I turn on MSNBC, and there's a reality TV star who goes to Israel, someone I don't even know. One of these almost like Desperate Housewives kind of shows it looks like. and she's I guess a mogul in the fashion industry. She's owns a modeling agency, so we'll get into that in a moment. Who she is, and she gave the most slathering. She's a Jewish person, and she returned to Israel, and she goes and hangs out with the IDF for a while, and talks about them like they're superheroes. I mean, in a way that RFK Jr., who's been the worst at just slathering all over Israel and giving these totally unrealistic takes. And it was stunning. Like the Morning Joe crew, like I almost thought it was a spoof. Like it was so bad. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And they're all bad. There's a scale there at levels of ridiculousness in terms of the news coverage. And this is, a 10. In terms of, are you booping me, right? You got to be booping me, right? MSNBC, Bernie Joe. Yeah, you are, like this isn't real, right? And so I copied it on my phone. And I woke up this morning and it hadn't gone to my computer, my, whatever the cloud thing is. It goes from my phone to the computer sometime. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. But it's still on my phone and I can airdrop it. But I looked and I found that they put it up on the YouTube channel for Morning Joe MSNBC, right? Which means they really want you to see something, right? The things that they highlight on their YouTube channel, they don't put up everything on YouTube. They only put up 1/10 of their content on YouTube. So if they put it up there, they really want to get it out there. And so that's what MSNBC is doing, shilling for Israel. And it's wonderful. I mean, this is a platinum clips I'm going to show you. I want to take my time and do this right because of RFK Jr. had a whole debacle himself, which I'll get into last night. Embarrassing thing that happened to him on his birthday, no less. And so it's a whole thing I want to, but let's get into it here.
That was entrepreneur and activist Julia Hart, best known as the star of the Netflix reality series My Unorthodox Life, which documents her life and family since leaving her ultra-Orthodox community. She was just in Israel, where she spent time with the IDF troops in Gaza, spoke with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and met with the families of those kidnapped on October 7th. And Julia joins us now with...
There she is, Julia.
More reflections on her trip. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So many questions. I'm curious what your reflections are on your meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu.
What I saw is a man who...
Look at her face. Look at her face. Look at Mika. Oh, my God. It's so interesting.
Who is holding the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Oh, my God. He's holding the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's not a saint. He's not a good person. He's a piece of boop. And so let's find out about this person first here. This is from the Tamron Hall show. There's a lot of these.
Listen, we are starting off our show today with a guest who has been the focus of tabloid headlines for the past 10 months. I cannot imagine waking up every single day and seeing my name in a headline with people speculating about my life. Well,
she's been in the tabloids. She's totally capable of doing quality journalism.
Millions of people first came to know Julia Hart, the woman who was a part of those headlines just last year during season 1 of the hit Netflix series. It's called My Unorthodox Life, which
boom. What is it about, Tamara?
Followed the story of a mother of 4 who fled her ultra-Orthodox Jewish community and rebuilt a life for herself and her family in Manhattan.
Wow, what a wonderful idea for a reality TV show.
Multi-millionaire fashion mogul and CEO of one of the largest modeling agencies in the world.
So she sounds like she's not only qualified, but she's completely unbiased at returning to Israel and doing a fluff piece that would, be fair to the Palestinian people and the truth.
We introduced Julia to the Tam family. It was last season. She talked about how she'd found love again with her second husband, entrepreneur Silvio Scalia. Well, it seemed like Julia's journey had this fairy tale ending, but it all came crashing down last February when Julia's husband fired her from her position as CEO, alleging that she used millions of dollars of the company's money for personal use. And within hours, Julia filed for divorce, asking for a restraining order.
So it sounds like a quality person with no drama in her life, an innate ability to read men and choose quality husbands, right? So she left her Orthodox Jewish community and married a guy that sounds Italian, and they, were in some kind of business together, and then the guy dumped her. But here she is here. Let's get into it here.
Here, same stage.
I know.
You were very optimistic about this relationship.
Yeah.
And you told me you found the right person. You're in a good place after all of these years.
Yep.
When did you learn? Did you really learn in the tabloids that this divorce was coming? How did you learn the news?
No, the divorce we had planned.
So this is one of those housewives, that had a little bit of a twist, right? The, housewives in New York, housewives of Beverly Hills, these types of, reality TV show people. And she comes from an Orthodox Jewish community. And so the viewers are mostly going to be Jewish people, right? This is the people that would find this interesting are going to be city folk. You're not going to see people from Alabama watching this, right? This is going to be, urban people, New York, Boston, maybe California, and mostly Jewish people who would watch her TV show, right? The demographics that would be interested in her story.
What I saw is a man who is holding the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I think that the fight going on in Israel is not land-based or religion-based. I think it is truly fighting for the soul of humanity.
Oh, my God. Fighting for the soul of humanity. You're making it sound like they're an underdog. Like the first video I did on this, you can go back and find it or not. It doesn't matter. And I've talked about this before. I listed the difference between the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli army, and the Palestinian non-army, right? The Palestinians have nothing, and it's divided up into two regions, and the Gaza Strip has less than the West Bank. There's no Navy, no Air Force, no real ground forces, no real artillery. They throw rocks. That's why the Palestinian people throw rocks, because they're completely overmatched. Okay, in this case, to put it in biblical terms, David is Palestine and Israel is Goliath, but not in a way that David has any chance with a sling, right? Like there's just nothing. Like the Palestinian people are beaten, and they have no chance. And for her to say this, I mean, I didn't see this part. Like I didn't even know about this part. The part I started is about a minute or two after this. It's the next segment. But for her to say that Benjamin Netanyahu is some sort of saint and savior with the weight of the world on his shoulder, and they're fighting for the soul of the world.
Or religion-based, I think it is truly fighting for the soul of humanity. And you get that feeling every day when you're there.
Come on, right? This is how bad she's coming in. She's comparing this to some kind of holy war between the Palestinian people and Israel. Israel can disappear and the world will be not affected by it. And it's certainly not on a soul level. Any country can disappear. America would be, because of the economy and everything that goes on with America, the world would notice, right? Israel's a small country that has a lot of influence, but, it isn't the centerpiece of the global economy and the global everything, right? There are countries that could disappear, lots of them, or they could change hands. There could be a revolution and there could be a new government, and it wouldn't affect the world at all. And Israel isn't the centerpiece of this, there's this idea that this is the Holy Land, and it's not. India has if you go to India, it is a place with thousands of years of spiritual traditions, whereas Israel is a place of contention and you dispute and fighting and, politics and skullduggery and all these things, right? That whole area for thousands of years of conflict and just bad living and the whole idea that God is to be feared, and the stuff in the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, and the way they present God and the way they think about God, it is not a very spiritual place, even though they want to make it that, because of three very violent and manipulative religions who are fighting for that region, who all have claim to a small, region, the Bethlehem area, that this area that's supposed to be holy land, and it's not. Like if you go there, you're not going to feel. And I'm saying that because the third master of the Sajmark system went there, and they brought him to the Wailing Wall, and he goes, "There's no spiritual energy here." Right? It was like the condition here is bad. They hump the wall there. These Orthodox Jewish people, if you ever seen it. So let me just interject here with more of an explanation. I'm in the editing process, and I'm going to show you the humping of the wall in a second here. But I saw videos about this years ago. There's a lot of them. There was some Orthodox minister, and then some people who were, who were formerly Orthodox Jews, explaining the thrusting the pelvis at the wall whilst praying. And in the Sajmark tradition, you want to forget about your body when you're doing something spiritual. You want to sit comfortably somewhere where you can, not think about your body, your physical aches and pains, or any of these things, right? You want to forget your body as much as possible and remember your spiritual side. And that's the best way to pray, the best way to connect with God, is to forget about the physical world and dive into divinity. So the way they're praying is just kind of goofy. And whatever reason they're thrusting their pelvis at the wall is whatever that is. But what I was saying about Master Charji is that, in the Sajmark tradition, they talk about how highly developed spiritual beings have come down sometimes to primitive peoples, and they had the ability to charge the object with spiritual energy. Or a saint who lives a very spiritual life, if you go to that person's house, you'll feel the spiritual condition of the place, right? Some places are very gross, like say, a bar or a strip club, or, a place where there's, I don't know, like they're fighting, pit bulls or something, like something where there's a lot of violence and, dark areas, people who live in a house that's occupied by very gross people, drug addicts, crack houses, right? And you can feel the grossness sometimes when you go into somebody's house, right? I had an ex-girlfriend, and I went to her parents' house, and her parents were depressed and just miserable. And, as soon as you walked in the house, you wanted to run. Like, it was just the heavy condition there. And, you as you get more sensitive, you can feel these things. But then there's spiritual places. There's places like, in nature, like the Grand Canyon. They're supposed to have these spiritual ley lines and, spiritual power points. And you'll find it in different areas where there's more spiritual energy. And you go to a mountaintop or the desert or the ocean, and you feel all this, divinity there, and it just feels better. And so a place like the Wailing Wall should be charged with spiritual energy, with all the people praying there and all the saints or spiritual people that have been in that area, right, in Bethlehem and that whole area in that country. And Master Charji, who's someone who was, a spiritual, developed person who could read spiritual condition, visited there, and he said, "I don't feel anything in terms of God's energy and God's love." Actually, it's a gross place, right? And so here's, that's the context of my understanding of the place. And then here's the humping the wall thing. I want to add one more thing here. I don't usually comment. Over the years, I haven't commented about other people's religion and belief systems. And certainly I wouldn't comment to them. I wouldn't go to their channels or their place of worship or, give my unsolicited opinion about what they're doing, because they're on their own journey and they wouldn't receive it, in some kind of way. And they, come across as arrogant and, whatever. And so, they are on whatever path that they're on. And people are on whatever spiritual level they're on. And talking to them about it, very rarely does anything. But this is my YouTube channel. And now, you're hearing this disinformation or this this fluff piece here. I mean, the audacity to come in and say, this war is a battle for the soul of humanity. And, this like so-called Holy Land. And I'm disputing that based in my knowledge, right? That my understanding is something different. Like, I'm not trying to demean or undermine people. I'm certainly, not talking in a hateful way. I don't hate Jewish people or any, group or whatever, as, you guys well know. But in terms of my knowledge base and my understanding of the spiritual world and holy places, This isn't one of them, right? It's a place of violence, conflict, and and the culture there is very neurotic and very heavy. All my people I've known who grew up in Jewish families have talked to me about this. Most of them, my preceptor for one, and that it's known as a heavy kind of a culture. I saw a joke. Jerry Seinfeld was on the Norm Macdonald, like a podcast, and Jerry Seinfeld said, "This is, the funniest Jewish joke," and for Jewish people, like American people or Anglo people would say, to a Jewish person, a Polish person, and rabbi, a priest, and someone walk into a bar. It's that kind of a joke, and it's for Jewish people. Like not, and he said people who aren't Jewish won't understand. And there was one guy on there, the podcast, who was like his Norm Macdonald's partner or whatever, his co-podcaster. And he said he was Jewish, but he laughed, but he ended up not understanding the joke. And the joke was two Gentile businessmen are walking down the street, and one of them says to the other one, "How's business?" And the other one answers, "Great." And, the joke is, as Jerry explained it, that to a Jewish person, if somebody asks you, "How's business?" the answer would never be great. It'd always follow a long list of complaints and, worries and things like this. Heavy culture, we see this with I just watched a long movie about this. It's a Joaquin Phoenix movie called Beau is Afraid. It's a horrible movie. Like, it was supposed to be a comedy, and I had to fast forward through some of it because it just got so long and whatever. But he is on a journey to see his dead mom, and it's really heavy and whatever. His mom ends up pretending she's dead and just, spoiler alert, laying into him. And, we saw this. There was a movie called The Guilt Trip with Barbara Streisand and Seth Rogen. But there's a lot of guilt, right? A lot of Jewish guilt, a lot of these things. I mean, all these cultures have these things in them. But it's very heavy, all that stuff, right? Very manipulative. And we see this with Everyone Loves Raymond, in the Italian community. A lot of these, the Catholic guilt and the Jewish guilt and these, a lot of neuroses and things. And I mean, these are what these shows are all about. These comedy shows like Seinfeld and some of these other, shows. And a lot of these ethnicities have a lot of heaviness and enmeshment in their culture. And it's very heavy. I found this in the Indian culture to a large extent. The pressure, the social pressure, and not losing face in the community, and the community coming down on you and people judging you and things like this, right? And that leads to spiritual grossness and a heavy spiritual condition, right? Which it obviously would. Guilt and shame and darkness and worry and having neurotic mental tendencies and things. The Woody Allen films, they're very heavy and gross, and they're filled with all those conditions, like lower level emotional conditions and guilt and shame and these things. They're very weighty, and they create negative spiritual energy in a place, in a home. Like if you go to somebody's house and the people are neurotic and worried, and the TV's on there all the time, or they got a lot of electronic gadgets going, like most people do now. Then you go in there, it's a very heavy, dense energy. And so that's what I'm referring to here. So I've heard of different explanations. I looked up the explanations, and there's one guy who was a former Orthodox Jewish guy, and he talked about the thrusting of the pelvis as something sexual to do with God, something weird, right? But only men do it. And see this guy doing it, humping the wall, humping the wall, humping the wall, right? Humping the wall. There's also a head movement, but the pelvis is supposed to be thrust towards the wall. And again, only men are doing it. These aren't the best videos. This guy's doing it here, right? Thrusting his pelvis in there.
And that is the Torah. Here, you can see.
Not everyone's doing it, but this is supposed to be a prayer. And the best way to pray is forget about your body. Forget about the physical. And the wall isn't holy. Your wall can be charged with spiritual energy. But according to the person I trust the most with this was the third master, the Heartfulness Sajmark system. Heartfulness is corrupt, debunked. The fourth master, the system, the meditation I do has become corrupted, right? I talk about this extensively on my Journey series. But the Sajmark meditation I do, Master Charji went to Israel, and he said there was no spiritual energy on the wall. Like, he went to the wall, and it wasn't charged with spiritual energy, which is what you hope. Like, if there's an idol, or there's a church, or there's a, some place where people go for religious, religious worship, it can be charged with spiritual energy, so you can feel God at that place, right? It can be a holy place. But he said this place wasn't. That was his takeaway, right? And I've gone to places where, other religious. I went to a peace pagoda, a Buddhist peace pagoda, and it had wonderful energy. I've gone to places that have great spiritual energy, churches. I've gone to old churches and things, and just sacred places out in nature. You feel spiritual energy. There are places that are just holy places where you can really feel God's love. But according to the person who I would trust the most that I've ever known, there was nothing there at this Wailing Wall. Really humping the wall, like he's getting in there. This guy's really doing it. He's working it. Humping the wall, humping the wall, humping the wall, right? And so, again, it is a religion like all the religions. They all have their issues. They have their good things and bad things in them. But the way that God's presented in the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, is a very angry, narcissistic, petty, selfish God who is entitled and is wrathful. And you're supposed to fear God. So for her to say this,
or religion-based, I think it is truly fighting for the soul of humanity. And you get that feeling every day when you're there.
come on. It's not that, right? It's this is a violent, horrible thing that's being done there.
And tell us more about what you saw, especially when you were spending time with members of the IDF and so close to a lot of the action that they're involved with. And
look, there's just a pile of rubble here, right? This was people's homes. This was people's lives. These were, people that their lives are affected. Imagine if this is your home or your neighborhood.
did you get a sense of sort of the mindsets of Israeli troops during this incredibly tumultuous time?
You know what really shocked me? Something I just didn't know, and that is that the IDF is comprised of such a vast array of religions, ethnicities, sexual orientations. I've met Christian IDF soldiers, Muslim IDF soldiers, Bedouin IDF soldiers, Druze soldiers. I met black people and white people, LGBTQIA soldiers and straight. It was this extraordinary aggregate of so many ethnicities, religions, and cultures. And you walk in and you...
Wait, it sounds like the Avengers. Now, Israel is one of the few countries that is based in religion, right? It is the state of Israel. It is the promised land, brought to you by Zionists who believe that God promised them this land in the Old Testament. Christian, Orthodox Christians, some of these evangelicals believe this is the case. People who believe in the Old Testament and people who believe in the Jewish Bible, that they were promised this land by God. And so it is one of the few places that is religious based, right? Where religion and the government are tied together. The Jewish state of Israel. Modern Israel came into existence on 14th of May, 1948 as a polity to serve as the homeland for Jewish people. It is also defined in its declaration as a Jewish state, the terms that appeared in the United Nations Partition Plan for the British Palestine in 1947. It was called British Palestine. They broke off a chunk called Israel, became a Jewish state, and they started to eat away at what was once called Palestine, right? They've had 3,000 years of beef there between these groups of people, between Jews and Arabs, tracing all the way back to the story of Abraham and his two sons and these things, right? I've talked about this. And I just learned about it. Like, this is something that I kind of knew about a little bit, but because of this conflict. So it's 3,000-year-old conflict. And when you have a 3,000-year-old conflict, there ain't a good guy, right? There's just two selfish groups that can't find a way to put an end to something after 3,000 years, right? I mean, for the betterment. We're talking about how many generations of people are beefing here, right? And again, I'm not saying it's one side's better, it might be a little bit better or a little bit worse or whatever. But in the case of this thing, Israel's the bully. Israel's, far superior in their military than the Palestinian people of a Jewish state. And she's making it sound like it's the United Nations coming in there and fighting against, the Hamas holes.
You don't feel hate, you don't feel anger, you feel camaraderie and bravery and this idea that these aren't people fighting for land, these aren't people fighting for wealth or power. They're there because without them, the state of Israel wouldn't exist. They're there protecting Christians and Muslims and Druze and every ethnicity that lives.
Come on, like why say that? We know it's a Jewish state. I just read it. Like Wikipedia will tell you this, right? Even Wikipedia, the whole idea of Israel as a Jewish state is for Jewish people. And I don't, it's a small little country. They're entitled to whatever, if they want to have something, they should have something, just like everybody else, right? I'm not, it's the way that this thing was done, using the United Nations, this way that it's been portrayed, the lies, the not allowing a Palestinian state, not allowing the Palestinians to have a recognized state. So they're illegitimate in their own country. I mean, all of it, right? And to come in this unbelievably, in this ridiculous fashion, making it sound that they're like the champions of democracy in the world, the way that RFK Jr. did, but she's even going in harder on this thing.
In peace and prosperity in Israel. And when you see that, and also they're so young, they're children, they're in their 20s, they should be experiencing the world, going to college, and yet what are they doing? They're standing there shoulder to shoulder, protecting people. And, they have so much tremendous empathy for the Palestinian.
Come on. Like, just stop it. Like, there's been videos I've seen for years, and I've never really wanted to cover this because, it's going to go its own way. And it's not, specifically to do with America, although America plays a big part in this. But it's not something I really covered. And, there's so many people that hate Jewish people in the truth community. And whenever I talked about something like this, I'd get all these people who hated Jewish people. I didn't want those people on my channel. There's so many channels that blame the Jews for everything in the world, and so many people in the truth community in the right wing that blame Jews. And, and I don't believe that to be the case. And, hatred is hatred. I've talked about this. And so I didn't want my channel to be like that. And there's just so many things I can cover. But whenever I did cover something like this, right? But there was some people. There was a woman who was, made Facebook friends with me who was in Palestine. Like an American woman had gone there. And she was like an activist. And she would send videos or post videos on Facebook. And then there's a couple of groups. Some of them were Jewish people, because there's a whole contingent of Jewish people who are really upset about the way that Palestinian people are being treated. And so I've seen videos over the years of Jewish soldiers, IDF soldiers, just abusing Palestinian people, sometimes kids, right? And maybe there's things going on the other way, but the Palestinian people don't have an army surrounding Israel, right? There's a huge wall that they've built, and there's army forces, and Palestinian people have to walk through Jewish territories to get to their other lands and their relatives and their jobs, and they're harassed all the time by these soldiers. You can see it. It's brutal. And there's so many videos that used to be up on YouTube. I think a lot of them have been scrubbed. And there's all these videos that were, out there that I've seen over the years. And so to pretend that these soldiers have love and, respect, and this isn't, we've even heard from Jewish people, the guy who just played from that paper Haaretz or whatever it is, talking about how they dehumanize the Palestinian people to make them sound like animals, right? This whole idea of goyim or goy or whatever it is. And so, come on, like this. So, if you just come in and give your point of view, your side's point of view, without making it ridiculous, right? Without making it sound like these people are, somehow saints dealing with a a problem that they didn't create, which of course they've created. For 3,000 years, Jews have participated. If you were in a bad marriage and one person's just so much worse than the other, abusive or crazy or whatever it is, it's understandable where you could make a case where you're you're not the bad guy, that you're not a part of it. You just made a bad decision. You're in kind of a relationship or beef with somebody, and sometimes you didn't want anything to do with a fight or whatever. But on a spiritual level, you did, on a soul level, because you have some scars that brought you into that situation, because there's no random situations. But as an ego, as a person, you didn't do anything to create that situation, and you want to get out of it. And once you get out of it, you're free from it, and then you don't want that drama anymore, and you don't have it. Where the other person goes on to just have more drama or whatever. And, that happens occasionally. And once in a while you have a bully country come in and invade a passive country, which happens all the time. The process of colonization. But after 3,000 years, it's both of you, right? Like there isn't one good guy and one bad guy. This is, if you look at the Old Testament, God, in air quotes, what they call God, told the Jewish people to just go and destroy different tribes, different peoples, Canaanites and the whatever the ites and all these people, all these Arab people. And God's ordering the Jewish people in their Exodus to go through and just destroy all these different people, right? Just go in there and, and these people aren't doing anything to them. Like they're told, God tells them they're evil, and they go in, and it happens for like, a long time, 40 years or something like this. And there's all these people that are villages and ransacked and things, right? And so if you say, oh, God ordered us, well, that makes it, gives you an excuse, but it doesn't make it real. So this is just so ridiculous.
Citizens that, what do? They're risking their own lives to try and target and specify Hamas areas so that they don't hurt anyone else. They are literally been put in an impossible situation because Hamas...
They're the victims here. So this is a video one of my viewers sent me from the New York Times. The following content may contain graphic or violent imagery. Viewer discretion is advised. I understand and wish to proceed. So YouTube slaps a warning on there. If I show you this, they're going to demonetize the video. But it comes from the New York Times. It has 64,000 views. Visual evidence shows Israel dropped bombs where it ordered Gaza's civilians to go. And I forget, I watched this. I meant to put this in a video. I don't know when this was sent to me. This video has been out for 2 weeks. Somebody sent it to me a long time ago, over a week ago. I don't remember when. And it's pretty horrific. And they're dropping 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs that the U.S. very seldom uses. And they're dropping them on areas. The New York Times documents that Israel's told people, go to this area, and then they drop bombs on that area. And so it's happened over and over again. And so this claim that they're somehow warning civilians and they're doing this thing in a way that's, fair and good and all these things is a lie, right? Like, of course they can say these things, but they've cut off all communications and internet. There's no videos coming out of the Palestinian area on social media. These people are living without food and water, and they're living in a war-torn country, and they're being forced out of their homes, and sometimes there's like some of the videos there, like there's a guy wailing, and he's really upset, and he's calling for his family and his children. He's got 4 kids buried in rubble that Israel just dropped a bomb on. His wife and 4 kids are in the house, the building, and the building's been razed to the ground. Right? It's it's a weird thing to say. That's a weird saying, razed to the ground, but which means that the building no longer exists, and it's just a pile of rubble. And in that pile of rubble is his dead family. And so there's all this stuff there. Like there's these graphic images and all this stuff that's going on there, right? And, like to say that they're doing right by the Palestinian people is just an absolute lie. Okay, so I'm editing this here, and I showed this video to my wife. I watched the very beginning. It's very disturbing. I mean, some of these people, the reaction of the Palestinian people, like it's, just emotional. They're looking for one guy's looking for his wife, another guy's looking for his 4 kids, these things. And then they show you this map. Again, this is from the New York Post. And it says, they say there were 200 areas here. New York Post has discovered 200 areas that the IDF said were safe for Palestinian people to go, that were bombed with some of these things with these heavy explosives. So these people were thinking they were in safe areas. They show them dropping pamphlets and all this other stuff, right? But I'd forgot about the number, but 200 is very significant. 1 or 2 could be a mistake, right? But they're bombing the crap out of these people. And for this woman to come on and say all these things, and this reality TV star model agency owning, person who comes from, a Jewish tradition, comes from this religion, and where did she get the money? Like, what was funding her, all the things she's doing? Why is she a reality TV star? Anybody who gets these positions is a shill. She working for Mossad. I mean, what's the angle here? Why is she a famous person? I mean, a woman who gets divorced, leaves her husband, leaves her, part of her religious tradition, and then gets a reality TV show, marries another rich guy, and then gets her own business, and then is celebrated. And then she goes back to Israel and is now considered, somebody who will give unbiased reporting. And the Morning Joe bring her on, right, to just slather give this fluff piece about how great Benjamin Netanyahu is and how important the war is and the IDF. I mean, it's like embarrassingly bad. Like, you just can't go in this hard and pretend, like, if you're going to lie, you got to do it where it's believable. I mean, you just can't go in this hard and like this big, just like RFK Jr. It's just embarrassing, right? Like, no one's going to, no one in the right mind would believe something like this. And then it just makes you question if this is where you're going with the lies and, what's your motivation for lying and going this big. And it makes you lose credibility across the line, not only as media networks, but as a country. And, the truth must be really bad if you're trying to come in and portray the IDF and Israel as these world-saving heroes, right? From a reality TV star who is biased just based in her upbringing and her religion and who she is as a person. So you have this modeling industry, this Jewish woman, formerly from an Orthodox family, who became a reality TV star and went into the, the really despicable world of modeling and fashion, which is one of the worst, grossest, parts of the entertainment culture. And then she's a reality TV star, one of these sort of housewife stars. She marries a rich businessman, and they have a messy divorce. And then she goes to Israel, and she tells you this unbelievable story. And Morning Joe is, lapping this thing up, right?
Surrounds themselves with children and with civilians. But I have never seen a group of people more dedicated, devoted to life.
Like, look, they're showing you this. These are kids' toys in the rubble. This is a toy a kid was playing with, maybe even a couple days ago, a week ago, and now it's this is their home, broken glass. I mean, this what if the kid was in there, and look at what she's saying here.
Devoted to life and to protecting others. That was the massive feeling that I got while I was there.
So here's what I copied. Here's the true ending here.
Activist and entrepreneur Julia Hart, thank you so much for sharing your reflections on your trip with us this morning. Thanks for coming on the show today. And that does it for us for this.
How could you just allow that to happen? Like, Morning Joe is one of the worst shows. One of the most pro-Biden shows, one of the worst shows. But, I mean, for her to just, pretend that was good, and then MSNBC puts this up on YouTube to further promote this debacle, right? Like, this was, this reality TV star who, where did she get her funding to start her business and all these things that she's done and, the modeling industry things and all this stuff that she's, after leaving her family and, well, I guess She moved from Israel to New York and, all this stuff, right? Became a reality TV star. It has Mossad written all over it, right? And just, going for it. Like, not just saying, all right, we're going to make it sound like we're not so bad, or that, we're a little bit better than the Palestinians or Hamas or whatever they're doing here. But no, they're trying to go for, they're saving the soul of the world. Like, that's what you're going to go with? Saving the soul of the world, saving the soul of humanity. That's in doing that by going to war. War doesn't save the soul of humanity. War has never saved the soul of humanity. War is hell, right? If you go to war for, you have to go to war for, some reason that you're defending yourself, whatever. Sure. But that's, war is battling over land and material things. It has nothing to do with soul and nothing to do with anything, right? Israel and America and, every country on this globe someday will be something else and was something before. You can't hold something forever. There's no true countries. There's no permanent states. There's no permanent cultures. There's no permanent, anything in terms of the, in terms of land ownership or any of these things, right? You can't hold anything forever. And there's no real territorial, permanent territorial occupancy is not possible. And so it's just so egregious. Like one of the worst thing I've seen. And so I don't know how many people watched this debacle. Only 7,000 watched it on YouTube. I don't know how many people Morning Joe gets to watch it. But the people watching this are not going to be, there are people already watching Morning Joe, right? But anybody else who sees this, it's just an absolute debacle. But then this happened because, the only other person that has gone in like this and talked about Israel in such glowing terms and, degraded the Palestinians to such an extent. I mean, most people have to, give a little bit of balanced coverage. All this coverage is warped towards Israel, in America, but nothing like what we just saw. But the only other person is RFK Jr., who, whose take was one of the worst things we've heard on the internet. And his campaign's imploding. Star-studded birthday party fundraiser for RFK Jr. turns into a debacle before it even begins. Before RFK Jr. takes a crack at running the country, he'll have to figure out how to successfully mastermind his own birthday party. AIPAC, that supports the White House hopeful this week, announced a grand celebration for Kennedy's 70th, doubling down as a fundraiser, featuring an impressive slate of well-wisher guests, including Dionne Warwick, Andrea Bocelli, Mike Tyson, and Martin Sheen. So 4 has-beens, right? He also has Woody Harrelson. I don't know where Woody is. Woody's somebody who endorsed him. Alas, it has already ended in a catastrophe, with every last one of the starry sorts denying in the strongest possible terms that they had ever intended to go to the bash, and the pact getting embroiled in a petty public spat with Sheen over whether or not it should be or not he agreed to show up. The pact fighting for One American is producing the event, and another pact, American Values 2024, is footing the bill for the fundraiser, which is set to take place in Indian Wells, California on January 22nd. On December 28th, American Values announced the tweet a superstar lineup Bocelli will perform at the bash with well-wisher guests, Sheehan included, these 3 people. This apparently was news to Warwick. The legendary singer told us via her rep, "No, I'm not attending. No, I'm not backing him. No, 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 no." And if it wasn't clear enough, her rep sent a follow-up email, writing in bold, "Miss Warwick has no association or affiliation whatsoever with Senator Kennedy," and then added she will not and will not ever attend an event, fundraiser, or in connection with RFK Jr. A rep for Botticelli, meanwhile, confirmed he's not attending or performing at the event. And Tyson brought the event was a birthday party, not a fundraiser, and even then he had no plans to go. Mr. Tyson was invited to RFK's B-Day celebration, which he cannot attend, not a fundraiser, his rep said. And so Tyson did an interview with RFK Jr. Like, I heard the interview. It's kind of funny. That was before the whole his debacle. She, meanwhile, wrote on Instagram stories, "I do not endorse RFK Jr., nor will I be attending his party for good measures. Yet on Thursday, I wholeheartedly support Joe Biden in the Democratic ticket of 2024. So this is the thing here. This is where he wrote this stuff here. Superstar tenor Andrea Botticelli will perform at fundraiser for U.S. presidential hopeful Robert Kennedy Jr. And well-wisher guests include Martin Sheehan, Mike Tyson, and Dionne Warwick. He's just a disaster. And he totally deserves it for his egregious take on the Palestinian situation. All right, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. I had a whole bunch more to cover, and I want to get to my other channel. I got a timeline with 20 tabs open. Just so I made a long video of Jimmy Kimmel's yesterday, so hopefully I'm getting another video out on my other channel. But that's it for now here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.